Hello, everybody. I hope you're having a good day. I, I see some Europeans on here. That's good to see. Maybe I should change the time every once in a while.
Hello, hello.
Hi. You guys have a great day.
Thank you, you too.
Thank you.
That was amazing.
Okay. Well, we'll wait just another minute or so to see if looks like other people are joining. So we'll wait a minute or so. It looks like we actually have more people on this time than we did last week already. So that's a good thing. Let's see.
Hello. That's enough.
Rusty sidekick at my and partner at my feet as always, Mr. Bosch. It looks like we still have a couple of people joining up for the talk. So I am going to attempt to replicate what we went over last week. It won't be the same. I may not be in the same mindset, frankly. Last week at night, I was in a mood. I was on a mission. So I may not have that vim, verve, or whatever this time. But I'll try to keep the same theme of things. So pardon me for just a second. Alyssa, that might be a scary thing. I saw what you texted there. Taking what's out of my brain and putting it into yours would probably scare you to death.
That's fair.
Literally. Okay, well, it looks like we're kind of somewhat stable here. Oh, Shelley's joining us now. So, yeah, it actually looks like we have a few more people at this time than we did last time. So maybe I should look at some of the different timings. Okay, I get it. All the Europeans are going like this, and so is Angela. So, yeah. Sorry, you don't what? You don't want to stay up at 2 a.m. or later.
For that, everybody's afraid it won't get recorded again.
Well, yeah, I just punched the record button, so it is being recorded as long as electronics work. So I just bought I've been through all sorts of frustrations here over the past year of trying to get a stable signal here from my end. because it keeps cutting out and pixelating and stopping and all of that stuff. So we will see how this works now. It's cost me actually thousands of dollars to try to put repeaters and signal boosters and change providers and. So I just bought a $50 item, which is a Wi-Fi USB Wi-Fi adapter that just plugs into my USB port on my computer. It takes over from the computer to boost the signal coming in. You know, I'm reading what the signal strength is off of my phone with an app, and it's very strong right here, but for some reason the computer itself isn't translating that into a good signal. So far it's looking like it's much better. So
Have you,
go ahead, Tiffany.
where is your router and your modem? Would it be the kind of thing that you could run a hard Ethernet cable?
Well, that was kind of my last resort to do
Okay.
some. So I've got
I knew this.
something. I've got two different Netgear signal boosters in the house, one in here, and it doesn't seem to make any difference to the computer. So I'm hoping it's the computer, the internal computer Wi-Fi receiver that I just plugged this new thing in. It takes over from what's installed normally in the computer and boosts that signal. So it is much better. Obviously it's working because you guys frozen, and neither have I yet. Hoping this helps. Whoops, I just did freeze, didn't I?
You did maybe just a little bit.
Frustrating.
If you have a basement, and I'm not going to talk about this too long, we've ran Ethernet in our own house. So if you have a basement, you want to talk about it later, then we could talk about that. No.
There's
Okay.
no basements. There's no
Uh,
basements in North Texas.
that's fair. I didn't think about that.
I didn't
so-
think about that too.
Yeah, that too. Whatever. Okay.
Okay.
All right. Let's I see Sharon has joined us too. So let's get started, guys. Sorry for the people watching on the recording later. You can skip probably the first 9 minutes. Of course, you won't get to that point till now. Okay, so what we wanted to talk about is pack dynamics, and it's probably not what you think. Pack dynamics is such a wide range of a subject. It could be probably a year of talks about what pack dynamics actually means. So it could be a number of things. I'm going to focus in on what it should be from your standpoint and how you should look at pack dynamics, both in your own home as well as helping your clients. So this is pointed a little broad, but not the range that it could be, because like I said, you know, I could probably talk about different aspects of pack dynamics for the next year of these live talks. And you know, this may generate a couple of them down the line because we have these lined out for what they are. If you remember last month's, this kind of feeds into it. Each time I usually have 2, 3, 4 months of a theme that adds to or stacks on the last ones. If you look from the beginning, and you know, if you just pick out one, it is as an unrelated subject to anything else, it stands alone, yes, but it helps if you got the ones previous to, so that you understand it from those contexts. So what does pack dynamics mean? Well, first of all, and I say this in a lot of my classes, you guys, most of you have heard this before, but what is the definition of a pack? Well, dogs are social animals, right? And so social animals, what does social mean, or sociality itself? Sociality itself means that that animal has the drive, desire, need, and genetic history of banding together with others to survive better. And we go back to survival always. That is our why something happens, why a behavior happens at all. So that the pack dynamic is dogs are social animals. So are humans. And that's how and why we were even capable and able to pack up together, to use that word, 40 to 45,000 years ago. It's how we became a co-species, is because of our sociality, both of our species drives, desires, needs, survival instincts to be with others, to actually survive better together, which is all about pro-sociality. Okay. So, the word pack is just a word. It's a sound. That's all it is in the English language. There are other uses in other languages of other words. For some reason, attacking language seems to be a new age thing. Modern times, in the past 10 years, things have flipped upside down in the world. But the word pack is simply a word. And, that we call groups of animals a number of different things, a gaggle, a herd, a flock, a murder, whatever it is. It's just a word. It describes a particular group of a species. So pack, stating that dogs are not pack animals naturally is an absolutely upside down world. So from that standpoint, of course, dogs are pack animals. Right? Well, that's interesting. Confirm I'm speaking Arabic? No, I'm speaking English. Okay, sorry, that came out very strange. So what we have then is, once again, defining something that everybody wants to define their own way. What it is a social group. Sociality is a social group that bands together deliberately to survive better together, period. Humans and canines are both social animals with the ability to cooperate together. And cooperation is what we are missing, frankly. Cooperation, we demand of dogs everything of them and nothing of us, other than to, quote unquote, take care of them, provide food, water, shelter. And we think we're holding up our end of the bargain. That is, that's the least value that you can possibly give to another animal or another person. If that's all you did with your children, your spouse, et cetera, you wouldn't be a very good human. So understanding that it is a cooperative venture, and everything you should think about and do should be as a cooperative aspect. In other words, historically, humans had a role. Dogs had another role. We overlapped a little bit. And those are the areas that we communicate well together. But from from the standpoint of a bigger whole, then that's why we backpacked and banded together to survive better, because dogs had their role, we had ours. And as hunter-gatherers at that time, that cooperation allowed us to not just survive, but to thrive and become the most successful species on Earth, both of us. And so once humans controlled our environment more and more and more with the help of the dogs, because we didn't have machinery 11,000 years ago the way we do these days, or electronics, at least that we know of. So we had dogs as sentries, as signalers, as guardians, as all of these things. So they changed. We changed them. We selected them for those roles, the dogs that were better at that would stay around, that would territorialize and help us and alert us so that we can stay safe in our single home, our environment, our land, rather than roaming thousands of miles of territory together as hunters. And that's what our original role was. So dogs, the reason that we still have dogs is because they were malleable to the point where we could select certain ones that had a better aspect of a better dynamic that we wanted when we changed ourselves and our roles to what we call a civilization. That civilized world is simply a controlled environment by humans to control nature. So we have exited from nature as much as we possibly can, and continue to want to exit from nature and control all environment, weather, everything constantly. You know, we want 72 degrees year round every place. That's why we go inside and hide in our caves with an air conditioner. And so by controlling that environment, we are not part of it anymore. We've separated ourselves. So our dogs no longer in we'll call it first and even second, in some third world countries, they no longer have that role that they began with us of hunters. In normal, polite society, we don't want our dogs out in the neighborhood hunting our neighbors' cats or their children or whatever else. Okay, right? And we don't want them protecting our territory beyond our yard or our home from quote unquote invaders, the way dogs see them. So we have issues now where the dog's only role is for our emotional support. And putting human emotions on an animal that doesn't understand those, that is a pure predator, that's a problem. So we have a pack dynamic in your home that is human behavior, understanding, and nature based upon the past 15,000 years of change of human understanding, environment, how our brains are structured now, versus an animal that we've selected to join us in that journey to change from hunters, basically a wolf pack, to fluffy sitting on your lap. And that's a massive dynamic we have put on those animals to please us. The dogs are very successful. There's approximately, by estimate, somewhere around 1 billion dogs on Earth right now. About 90 million of them in the United States alone. But somewhere around 70% of them are what we would consider feral or street dogs worldwide. So only around 300 million are kept as quote unquote pets. And actually, I believe the highest percentage of, if I remember correctly, I saw something a while back in Europe. I believe the highest percentage of dog, we'll call it ownership in European countries think it was Germany, but it was 45%. The lowest was 12% in Switzerland. You know, in the United States, about 60% of households have at least one dog. So that's a massive number between in the Western world at least. Rest of the world, they use dogs differently. And a lot of them are outside in compounds protecting, still using them as the guardian dogs, much like we had when we went into compounds and agricultural uses, where we would stay in one spot as our territory rather than roam. So that change, those dogs have been around a long time. They've survived that way. Then you have other dogs like the ancient breeds, like Huskies and Malamutes, that have been in a non quote unquote static environment. In other words, the territory is 10,000 square miles, and however long you can run for 9 months out of the year. That's their understanding of things, which is why Huskies, quote unquote, run away. They don't run away. They're just going to see the rest of their territory that they haven't seen before. That's in their minds. So pack dynamics is, in this case, humans and dogs together. It's also any other animal that happens to be in their particular territory that they see as a pack, as part of the pro-social unit, which means birds, cats, squirrels, whatever it is in that environment that they see as a pack member, a useful member. So part of the aspect is, you know, where in that pack level are you seen, in what situation, by those dogs? And humans and human ego always places us up here and everything else down here. But that's not the reality of what the situation is, because you are, as a human, constantly thinking about something else. You're not aware generally of what's going on in the environment, which is what the dog is all about. So you're not present, in other words. And that mental presence and awareness, even if you're focusing on something else in the moment, as long as you're aware of what's going on, you can address that immediately. Dogs can see that, and they can respect that you have some sense of something going on. When you blank it out of your mind and say, I know what's going on, and you don't indicate to the dogs or other animals that you've got this, then they don't see you as a useful member, and you're certainly not in charge. You're certainly not on top. And so probably 98% of the time, the way the dogs experience you, the humans, is you're not on top. You're not the leader, because the leader is momentarily in that survival situation. Period. That's it. Whoever's best at understanding, providing a solution, and we can survive from it in that moment. And that includes just moving through the house, going out in the backyard, looking at the squirrels. It includes all of those little tiny elements that are constant in a dog's world. So that's really, it's levels, and that is not a hard and fast fixed position, guys. When you have say-so, and because you're the size of a bear, dogs have to respect that, because you provide some elements in the environment that they have to survive by. Okay. So let me back up a little bit now. Let's talk about sociality. Okay. So the antisocial, so the 4 levels of sociality: antisocial, okay, against interaction. So much so, I'll kill you. That's antisocial behavior, right? That can be a personality type, that can be a temperament, that can be a momentary thing. And even a very pro-social animal can become antisocial appropriately against something else, someone else who's coming to attack or incorrectly behaving on its own for itself against the pack. In other words, against the wishes of the pack or the survival of the pack. So antisocial is against interaction. Asocial is, and these are important things for you to understand, and hopefully these definitions help your clients too. Asocial then is don't care about interaction. It's the dog or the human over in the corner that just wants to be left alone, doesn't want to interact with you in that moment, et cetera, et cetera. Okay, there are some asocial personalities, humans like me, that don't want to have to do anything with other humans. But so the ability of understanding antisocial, asocial, social, meaning I want interaction and I want interaction on my terms. Okay. To pro-social, about whatever I do is for the good of the pack, even if it's for myself, it's still for the good of the pack. That's a pro-social thing. A mother and pup, a mother that grabs a pup up in its mouth, takes it away from others, that's momentarily asocial, antisocial, but it's certainly not social. It is definitely pro-social for the pup and the mother. So you have to understand it in context as well. Okay. So sometimes an antisocial direction toward a particular dog, for instance, is a pro-social thing for it in the long run and for the pack. In other words, if I disagree with a dog in what it's doing, better be because of the aspect of that pack dynamic of creating a pro-social entity, whoever's in that pack in that moment. So if I disagree, that may be antisocial to that particular dog, but it's for the purposes of creating a better outcome for the entire pack. Okay. So, so proper sociality then, definition of proper sociality is it becomes a unit, a social unit that everybody in the unit acts in their place. The reason dogs and humans packed up together was because dogs had a role. They've got better senses and capabilities than we do in certain areas, especially for hunting and finding things. We have better capabilities in other areas where supposedly our brain in tactics and strategies and intelligence, and because we have tools and we've got these weird paws up front that we stand up and we do things with, spears and rocks and things like that, so that we can take down large animals like mammoths and ground sloths and all of those things and kill them for food. And those proto dogs don't have to get killed, stomped on, gored by themselves, working by themselves to take down that, multi-ton animal. We're there doing the big job. They're there to distract and stay out of the way so they don't get killed. They got a lot out of it. We got a lot out of it because they showed us where and how and distracted as we took down the animals. They get fed, they get, without losing their lives. Well, let's look at nature even right now. Worldwide, there's only 700,000 wolves left on Earth. That's actually increased over the past 20 years or so because of the interest in actually saving species of wolves. So it was even much less than that. even so, even in a protected status, wolves, depending on the specific species of wolf, the average lifespan is only 4 to 7 years. Nature is harsh, guys. And if you have to go out there, use your teeth on something that's a 1,200-pound animal or a 2,000-pound animal that can kill you too, and you need your pack members, sociality, pro-social aspects, to survive with, then part of the problem then is, you know, you get killed, you get your teeth smashed in, you get your lungs crushed in. Plus, in a lot of cases, certainly in the United States, actually in North America, United States and Canada, 60% of wolves in North America are killed by humans, even though they're protected. So, you know, nature's harsh. So a pro-social unit, then each individual has its place within that pack, but each individual has its purpose that everybody else in that unit sees, agrees with, and counts on that individual to have the right answer for the pack at the moment. Okay. That's true of every individual in that pack. So if you've got humans over here and dogs over here, and the dogs don't see you pulling your weight, you are at a low level within the pack. So you must pull your weight, not just at feeding time and not just to go on a walk and watch your watch and say, well, I've got an hour to walk, so I'll walk you for an hour. Take 5 minutes and do the right thing. That's more powerful and more important than an hour walk. Just really is. Okay. So each individual has to be valuable and do the right thing for the pack in each moment. The more you are aware of what they're aware of, in other words, the environment that you actually live in, instead of inside your own head, the more valuable of an individual you are, and the more they trust you. That's the point. It goes all back to trust. When we talk about relationship-based training and relationship-based behavior modification, it's about the relationship you have with the dog, not the dog to you. That's the reverse of almost all training methods. Okay? They talk about relationship, but they don't actually look at our role for the dog. It's always the dog to us. So we take ourselves out of the equation when we're supposed to be the superior intellect to actually put ourselves in that position. We've chosen to have dogs. The dogs didn't choose to be with us. And we chose the dogs. We chose the dogs that are in our environment. So you're personally responsible for that pack and for matching it up. So we'll talk about that. Okay. So roles, behaviors, you know, you have to have not just communication, not even proper communication. You have to have comprehension from the other parties. So that comprehension, understanding the other party, what they're signaling, what they're about, et cetera, et cetera. We need to make more of an effort and put it on the humans to understand what's actually going on with each individual dog. Okay. It's not an ego feed to have 20 dogs in your household. Trust me, it's not. I've done that. It has nothing to do with ego. Okay. It has to do with each one of those individuals and what it creates in that. The given cooperations. So you give cooperation to the dogs, but you limit it a lot. And you mean humans. I'm not saying you individually. So you give cooperation of how you want and what you want. That's social. That is not pro-social. Okay. Dogs attempt to communicate to humans attempt to give things, which we disagree with a lot of it. You know, dog comes in with a squirrel and lays it on your foot, or a dead rat, and you get all, you know, crazy. Well, the dog has offered that to you to show what they did. You know, you can celebrate that or you can punish it. And so you just took away a lot of what the dog is about by your actions. So the given cooperations are very important to watch each one of those dogs, what they give you in cooperation, because every one of them is an individual. They have to be. Not there isn't one dog that's identical to another dog, just like there's not another human that's identical to you. So what they give you helps make up that pack. Okay. The natural survival roles and understandings. What do dogs do? Okay. They're depending on the breed and what their genetics say to do, whether they track and trail, sniff along the ground, whether they bark at everything that moves, whether they go after something and hunt, whether they herd, whether they swim, whatever it is, you are selecting that dog and that type of dog to put in your home. There should be a reason for having that behavior and that type of dog in your home. Secondly, as part of the pack and what role it should play. And it should be not in conflict with any other pack member, including yourself. So those are the things that you should look at when you select a dog to come into your home. And you should explain that to your clients for any future dogs they may have as well. Okay. So how do dogs see humans in the pack? What's the role in our behaviors? Well, typically humans are here and dogs are here, and they kind of live together, and that's about it. As professionals, a lot of us do a lot more with our dogs, but it's what we ask of them rather than what they give us. So I would, you know, in classes here, those of you who come to classes here in Blue Ridge or elsewhere that I've been teaching, those classes are about you learning about your dog and understanding more about them and what they give you. And so you can fill in gaps. There's no reason to have humans in a dog pack if the humans aren't valuable, and vice versa. So the value should be more than an emotional thing. Let's look at the emotional side of things too, because humans, once again, we are eye dominant. That means your brain thinks through your eyes. Whatever you see, that's your corroboration. Dogs are nose dominant, meaning whatever they smell, that's what they think. Their eyes are secondary, even tertiary to the nose. Our nose is tertiary to our eyes. So, you know, hearing in both cases is a secondary aspect. We want to see things. And so when we look at dogs, we go back 98 million years in our genetics and our common ancestors and see that shape, that physicality, all of those things, and see something that we see as desirable and beautiful because that's our genetic memory. That is literally part of where we came from. So we have that connection there. We've done this in, you know, over 98 million years of time. So we look different, we act different, we behave differently, we smell differently, we monkey chatter all the time, we do weird things. So that dogs align with us is because of similar behaviors in certain areas, which was the hunting aspect and territorial aspects. So we aligned that way. And if we can replicate those types of thoughts and things, reasons behind, the why behind what we do with our dogs, If you can keep that in mind, you will have a much more successful pack. Okay. So how do humans see the dogs in the pack and their role in the behavior? Once again, so we've got the dogs, how they see us, and humans, how we see the dogs. And that dynamic is constantly changing, because when you don't act on something, when you don't respond, when you don't even recognize or show the dogs, yeah, I've got this, don't worry about it. Now the dogs have to take over because it concerned them. It's of interest to them. It's an unknown, and you didn't provide any answers. The dogs took over. You're no longer in charge in that moment. You must understand that. So you provide guidance for categories of things with dogs and go, that's not of interest to us, don't worry about it. Now they have an answer from who? You. Otherwise, they provide their own answers. So a proper pack and a good dynamic of pro-social creation is that your role should be more involved than what most humans do. Okay? And the way you think should be more like it was 25,000 years ago, frankly. So the human role in the pack, you must become trustworthy. And to become trustworthy obviously takes composure. Human emotions, those things that just explode out of us all the time, are not understandable to dogs. It's what creates, I will say, chaotic things in the environment, which creates chaotic dogs. Uncertain, nervousness, all of those things that humans create in their dogs because they can't understand those emotions. They come out of nowhere. You this weird thing at, and you explode in anger or you start laughing. It makes no sense to them because the environment didn't do it. So it makes no sense to dogs for humans to behave like we do emotionally. So your composure, as much as you can possibly, and I don't mean deadpan constantly. I have an emotion beyond what I do normally. But anytime that I lose composure, I'm not around the dogs. So if you have to remove yourself, it's like taking a deep breath. It's no different than going and clearing your head, clearing your mind, getting some oxygen to your brain, all of those things. Just give it up, give that up, because emotions are created within your own mind. And those emotions create neurotransmitters and hormones. That's where the emotions come from, that the dogs instantly smell through your breath and your sweat. So they know you're out of control. You are not in charge, regardless of your emotion. You're not in charge aspects, but you're not in charge. Okay. So composure, comprehension of dogs from their standpoint. In other words, you must comprehend dogs the way they see the universe, not the way you want to look at them as 2-pound fluffy that's cute. Okay. Bosch is with me 90% of the time. He's my service animal. We go out together everywhere together. I honestly don't have a leash on him. I have a 1-foot lead. He's behind me. That's how he works best to see the entire environment. He moves back and forth. He sees when I need assistance, physically as well as sniffs. And so he places himself where he needs to, including between me and others, if they come up, other things like that. And that comprehension of what he does and how he does it, and his role, his trust with me and my trust of him, is we're equal partners, and I see him literally as an equal partner. I'm not above him. I'm not, it's a different mindset altogether, guys. So understanding what he does, how he does it, why he does it is my study of him, because he has taken on roles that I never taught him, because it's just a progression of his understanding of what is needed. That's pro-social. I can't emphasize that enough. Third C, so composure, comprehension, consistency. Your consistency. When you are inconsistent, you create chaos. And no animal, not one animal on earth, can survive within chaos for very long without having to go against it or control everything. So they take over. And that's what we see a lot in our clients' homes, is that chaos that the dog has taken over. Now the dog's in trouble because the humans disagree with the dog, because they think they're in charge, and the dog goes, "You're out of control. You're idiots. I'm going to die, and so are you if I don't take over," because that's the way the dog thinks, guys. Okay. So the other aspect, awareness of the environment. Your total awareness of the environment all the time. Hello, Bosch. Practice. This is something matter of fact, I had martial arts class last night, and I taught martial arts class, and your awareness, your capability of awareness. You go into a room or a large area with lots of people, and they all group up and they're having conversations, and you hear this one conversation, 5 people over on the other side of the room that you're focused on, and all of a sudden something happens over here, some word or something clicks in your brain that you start listening to that conversation over there 3 people away. You know how you do that? You are actually aware and hear everything, but your brain focuses on one thing at a time so that you can get that aspect. That's what you should practice all the time. The awareness of everything going on. Do not dismiss that leaf rustling over there because that dog focused in on that leaf. And if you are going, "Stop that, you're silly," et cetera, you have a response other than "don't do that," then the dog gives up on you because you're an idiot in the dog's mind, because the dog was concerned about it. So if you go, "I see it, no problem, buddy, good boy, it's not of interest," that dog will stop. He understands, oh, he's got this, he understood it, he saw it, etc. That's pro-social behavior. And that's becoming a human leader in the way that you should, not because of demand, not because of dominance, not because of anything else. Okay? It's your role that you put, it's that cloak you put on yourself when you agreed to bring a dog into your home. Just like you becoming a parent. You put that on, you agreed to just by doing it. Okay. Then providing routine and structure. Dogs are forced to sequester themselves in our homes and our environments. You have to provide the stimulus. You have to provide the routines that they can count on from you and through the day for themselves. Okay. Otherwise, they'll make it up for themselves. So you get, things chewed up, couches jumped on and torn up, counter surfing, pooping, and so you get everything because the dogs have to make it up because you didn't. Okay. So let's talk about now the human role in the pack. Resources. We've got food, water, shelter, right? Those are the main 3. So you provide food, but you should provide good nutrition. It's not just about food. And that's where I taught that there's all sorts of books out there that are really good books on canine nutrition. But I taught the course about the digestive system and understanding that roles change through age, even through the time of day, the time of the year, that different things are needed in the digestive system of dogs and how that intakes food within its environment. So it isn't feed this versus that. It's not a formulaic thing. If it is, you're lazy. Sorry. And you shouldn't be lazy. You should be seeking knowledge always about each one of your dogs. I watch my dogs constantly to see, are you healthy? What's wrong with you today? What do I need to change? What mineral, what all of these different things. And you should become aware of those. That's why I taught that course in the first place, is to give people an understanding of percentages of things that help versus, during these times. It's not that you don't use grains. Mostly you don't, but grains have their place too. But understand what you're actually doing with those. So, and those are few and far between, but they're still a necessary aspect. So food, water, obviously. Water is a natural resource. It's out there. Dogs can find it all the time. If you retain water from dogs, you better think about why you're doing that. There better be a medical component or some actual necessary thing. Otherwise, they can find water in the environment, period. So I always leave water available unless there's some medical reason to do that. Shelter, well, you say, well, I pay for this home, so I'm in charge. Dogs don't care. They don't know about it. All they know is, the neighbor hasn't come over here and killed us yet to take our territory too, or drive us off. That's all they know. That's all they care about. So shelter is hopefully permanent. And if it's not, like many clients that have come to me over the years of, I ask, what's changed? What changed 3 months ago? Oh, nothing. Well, we moved. Well, that's nothing to the human, but it's everything to the dog. So that's the point, is why did we give up that territory? Were we pushed out? Were we driven off? Or are we a weak pack? Did we find someplace better? Are we a strong pack? These are all the things that dogs inherently sense and feel. So the other aspect of human provided things are mobility. Mobility isn't used the way it should be. Mobility meaning if you can move, you're alive. And that's to be celebrated. Movement itself is a reward for a dog. It means you can. At 21 and a half years old, my Siberian Husky Bella, her getting up and coming over to me is a celebration point every time. At this point, we celebrate just being together, that she's just alive. So I'm happy for her. She trusts me inherently. She comes over to me, I'll massage her back. We'll go outside together. She's very slow. She's still alive. And her reward is to go with me and do things. So, and then obviously safety. Those are the things that we have to provide. So, okay. 1 minute, I'm gonna have so. Sorry about that. He's telling me he needed to go, so I'm letting him go. Okay, and then providing guidance. Again, the human role still providing guidance, composure, influence. So your influence should be how you guide your pack, how you create your pack, what is acceptable, what's not acceptable. It's influencing. It's not forcing dogs to do X, Y, or Z. Force is something that I reserve for the highest level of a disagreement. In other words, if I force a dog to do something, it's because of a pro-social aspect. And boy, that's a whole different universe. Maybe that's a talk on itself, what force is and when it should be used. Okay, because it does exist, it's necessary, but it's rare, and it's especially rare once you have established your pack in a proper way. You should always be, your role is to influence the dogs. So in a human dominated environment, I'm the one that needs to influence. Now, other dogs, my other dogs influence the pack, each other, myself too. So it's not you're on top, it's you are working to create a pro-social pack. That's what pack dynamics should be. Okay, and then capabilities, your mental, physical, your presence, those things. Mental, physical, and presence, in other words, your mind, where it's at. Those things should be providing guidance, okay? Because, again, A, composure, B, influence, 3, your capabilities. What is a human capable of? What are you capable of understanding and providing? Okay. Then the survival aspects. See the way your dogs see survival. I think the biggest gap between humans and dogs in a home environment is that humans see survival by what shoes they wear today and what car they drive and what clothes they put on and what perfume or whatever else they put on. That's the way humans see survival for acceptance in our societies. We don't see survival like it was 20,000 years ago, where you go out and you kill and gather your food and you celebrate that and you get to survive. The reality of the situation is we have been so specialized now because there's 8 billion of us on Earth. We become super specialized, hyper specialized. We're not even a colony of ants. We've gone well beyond that in specializations. So we don't have to be generalists of survival anymore. So we have deliberately and qualitatively separated ourselves out to be specialists. Period. I don't have to worry about the millions of other things. Other people are taking care of those things for me because my role is this and I can buy whatever, right? So that's what's happened. You can't do that with dogs. You have to be the generalist. So see the way your dog sees survival. The dog is barking at the fence next door at the dog next door because it sees that dog as a threat to its survival and your survival. It's not just for the dog, it's for you too. You're part of the pack. It's trying to protect the pack. It's being pro-social in its understanding of how it sees threats. It's being pro-social for you. So when you go out and you fuss at the dog, rather than just put a limit on it and go, we're not worried about that. So if you fuss at the dog, if you punish the dog for doing X, now you have a massive gap you just created because that dog still sees that dog over there as a threat and you were weak and scared and backed off. That's what you did. Okay. This all has to do with pack dynamics, guys. Okay, so creating, once again, human role, creating a pack mentality. Rules. What are rules? Okay, we don't fight. We don't have a bunch of fussing over. We don't have one dog trying to dominate or trying to play all the time so that they can dominate in play rules, like the social butt heads that like to push. So you provide those influences and tell them, hey, no, rules and boundaries. Because without rules and boundaries, you've got chaos, period, which is what most dogs live in human environments anymore. Okay. not with you guys, obviously, but others, our clients. Okay. And then the selected purposes for each dog. In other words, selecting which dog does what because of its capabilities. And even though you treat all dogs equally, you should. If you favor one dog, you just created an inequality, and all the other dogs are going to disagree with your choice of who you favor because they have their own understanding of things. If you create a hierarchy, you're wrong. And you have also elevated that dog, not just above other dogs, but in many cases above yourself. That's one of the things that I preach to all of my clients that I ever had. You cannot create a favorite dog. It's not his dog and her dog. It's one pack. That's it. And you're part of it. And people get insulted by being part of a dog pack. Well, then why do you have dogs? Sorry, you're a social unit. Get over it. Suck it up, crybaby. As I like to say. So, selected purposes. How do you select a dog for a gap in things? Well, I'll tell you the story about Callie, since I put her up on a post yesterday, I believe. A friend of mine knew I was looking for a dog. I was actually looking at shepherds, Dutch shepherds, and turfs at the time, and wanted to add one that way for a specific purpose within my particular pack that time. And this person knew I was looking for a particular dog, but she recommended I go see a dog. And since it was her, she knew what I was kind of looking for. And even though I wasn't looking for that particular thing, she knew the types of dogs that I could use because of what I did with rehabilitation and those sorts of things. So she recommended this. I said, she cajoled me into it, and I said, okay, well, okay, I'll go see this dog. What is it? It's a Siberian Husky. And I said, no, that's not what I'm looking for. She says, no, you need to go see this dog. She was very emphatic about it. I said, okay, I'll go. So we made arrangements. I went to puppy, and there were other Huskies. I think they had 2 or 3 dogs, and then they were fostering other dogs at the same time too. Siberian Huskies, as a matter of fact, all adults. So she was the only puppy. So I went over, and I had known the people before from other things. So they let me in, and I basically worked with, I just sat on the floor, and Callie was probably the most calm, polite puppy I'd ever dealt with at that age. She just had it. She was perfect in her social politeness, her dog manners, everything else. I was kind of stunned, and I was, I worked with her about 10 minutes, or ended up about 30 minutes in. I was sitting on the floor. She was kind of sitting in front of me, and we were interacting, but just there was no play. She wasn't rude. She didn't invade my space. We had a great interaction, and I was just about to get up and excuse myself and go home and think about her and think, well, okay, that's a change of what I was looking for in my pack. They were right seconds before I started to get up off the floor. 2 of their foster dogs, both males, probably 2 years old, both of them, I would guess, about 6 feet from us over on my left-hand side, started squaring off with hackles up, tails up, and wolf gums. I looked over instantly. Callie looked over before I could say anything. She gets up, she goes over, walks literally right between them with her body facing on either side of them. Her tail curled up, her head up, just, cute, perky dog. Looked at one, looked at the other. They both lowered their heads, backed off. This is a 5.5-month-old puppy. And I said, that's my dog. I'm taking her home. Because I've never seen that ever in a puppy, much less you can't teach that to dogs. They either have it or not. That was the most pro-social dog I'd ever seen of understanding of. And it was like, it was like the cute girl batting her eyes going, oh, you guys don't want to fight. And that's Callie. And she's been that way her entire life. She has, so I immediately brought her home, and that's been her role. That's her personality the entire time. She's the one that when Nellie came back to me, and that first day, and Nellie's laying there, and somebody walks by her, and her wolf gums go up. Callie saw it, walked and stood over the top of Nellie's head, and I'm going, girl, you're about to get gutted. And Nellie just put her head down and went, okay. Callie walks away. That's the type of dog that is extremely rare. And though I wasn't looking for that dog directly, I recognized that was a dog that needed to be in my pack, because it's a unicorn, literally. So that's 1 out of 10,000 dogs that can do that. And I've never regretted that. So when you can select dogs, unfortunately, as most people don't know how to select dogs. They don't understand personalities. They look at looks, because we're eye dominant. They don't look at, there's that word again, look. From the standpoint of personalities, capabilities, their brains, how they see pro-sociality. If you let pro-sociality guide you, you will select the right dogs, period. Okay. Because that's creation of the pack. That is pack dynamics. And those dogs will help every dog that ever comes in that you work with or that you bring in your pack. Those dogs will instantly show them the ropes, basically, and say, that's not what we do. This is how we do it. Dogs that are certain understand other dogs that are certain, and they go, okay, I got it. Yes, ma'am.
Two things. Time update, it's 4:10. And just, touching on, right now your subject of, or the topic of finding a dog that's going to be pro-social with your pack. This is where, fostering gives you an excellent opportunity to test drive, so to speak, dogs within your home pack environment. You learn about, especially for people that don't have as much experience, or even if you don't have as much experience, you're always gaining new knowledge, new experience with every new dog that you work with. But that does give you an opportunity to test drive and see if this, dog is going to be, that's how I've made my pack of dogs, that make sure they all complement and cooperate with one another so that you get the best of every single one of them and their own special qualities that help and work together beautifully.
Thanks, Sandra. So, okay, so we've got rules, boundaries, selected purposes, physical roles. Little dogs and big dogs have different aspects. The physical role of a dog, a border collie is going to be different in behavior than a Jack Russell or a bulldog or a husky or a German Shepherd or a Malinois. So creating your pack should be a deliberate knowledgeable thing, okay? Strategic placements, what does that mean? We're creating a pack mentality. So strategic placement means if you've got a large gap in your pack of understanding of a role that could be played, that's the dog you should be looking for. It shouldn't be, well, I've always had Ridgebacks, so I just want another Ridgeback, which is the way people go about it. I'm sorry, but that Ridgeback isn't going to be your last Ridgeback. It's a different animal, period. So strategic placements, tactical placements, same aspects. I can go into those, but that almost sounds like another talk by itself. I talked about tactics and strategies a few months back. Okay, your role still, human side, certainty. You must be certain, not because you're arrogant, but because of your knowledge and your capabilities. So whose responsibility is that to get knowledge and capabilities? It's yours. Okay. You see where the onus of things lies. You're the one creating the pack and understanding what you're creating. And you're also the one that has to work with clients to create a proper pack. It's not just about training that dog sit, stay down, place, come. It's how do these humans and this dog or these sets of dogs live together better? You are creating that pack mentality. That's what you're trying, that dynamic. So that's the problem solving that you should be doing. Okay. You can go to all those seminars and courses and everything else about how to train a dog, but that's not the answer. There's more to it than that. And the really excellent dog trainers understand they're creating a pack dynamic, and they work with their humans to what they can with training the dog. And that way the humans and the dogs at least have some understanding and capabilities of each other. The deeper thing is to really educate those humans as to what all this means and to view the dogs in an entirely different perspective. That's what I try to do with all of my students that come to the CHRI, is change your perspective about how you see dogs and what you see, frankly. Okay. So, and then the emotional detachment to uncertainty. You have to have emotional detachment. What does that mean? Okay, so you must be certain. The uncertainty that comes up, don't get emotional about it. Whether it's within the dog itself, you feel sorry for the dog, you can't do that. You can't help them. Or it's your uncertainty. You cannot get emotional about an uncertain aspect. You have to problem solve. Therefore, you have to have a detachment from it. Otherwise, you can't see it for what it is. Okay. What's in your mind in that moment, and being present in the environment and with the dog. So you need to be aware of the dogs and the environment. Self-control. Now, part of self-control for humans or dogs, I'm looking at recovery time. The faster you can recover from an incident, from a surprise, from a disappointment, from whatever else, the faster you can recover from that, everybody notices. And guess what? That allows you to gain trust of others, because you actually trust yourself to control yourself. So recovery time is extremely important. It's what I look at when I'm working with dogs. How quickly can you recover from that little incident, or this or that? What categories of things? Do you have it all, or do you need work in some area? Okay. And, in course 2, for instance, we go over things and we do lots of categories of things over and over and over again each day to give the dogs experiences, to build up their physical, their mental, their capabilities, their trust in us. We do lots of those things so that their recovery time is like that, just by the end of those 8 or 9 days. So, okay, so dogs' role in the pack. Let's talk about the morphology of the dog. The brain of the dog is number one. That's what you're working with. You're not working with a fuzzy, fluffy puppy with, cute markings and all that stuff. You're working with a brain inside that cranium. And you're working from your brain to that brain. That's what you need to focus on, is the brain. What signals, what intent, what aspects are you getting across to that dog? And the dog's role is whatever that is in the brain of that dog, how it's learned to encounter the environment safely and confidently without conflict. There's the key right there, guys. And you too. So brain, nose, mouth. Dogs are nose dominant, mouth supported, because that's their tool. Our hands are our support. We're eye hand dominant. Our brains literally think eye hand. If we see something, we want to grab it, manipulate it. That way we control it, understand it, figure it out. Dogs are nose, I smell it, I'm going to get it in my mouth, control it, taste it, see what it is, etc., etc. You have to think like that dog understands things. So the dog's role in the pack is about their brain being nose, mouth dominant, their size, because the Chihuahua thinks it's 5,000 pounds, but it's not. Okay. The age in some aspects, whether it's a puppy or an ancient dog like Bella, who doesn't want to be bothered with things, but still tolerates a new puppy. The health of the dog obviously makes a huge difference, because if a dog feels a loss of its capabilities in some way, even temporarily, it's going to be more likely to either avoid interaction or preemptively strike. You have to know that. You have to understand that, right? When you're in constant pain for a while, your nerves fray, don't they? So give the dogs some grace, and also help guide the others in the pack to show, hey, this guy's having problems, leave him alone, stop being a butthead. Okay. And then survival aspects, the dog role. Okay, so survival aspects, the abilities, both mental and physical, of dogs. I am still constantly and amazed by the mental capabilities beyond what I ever knew or imagined daily with my dogs. The almost telepathic understanding of things that Toffee has of me. I'll think something, I'll look at her, she'll just go do it. Or she presents it to the other dog, just like what's happening with Candy right now. I'm developing her for someone as a pre-development, I'll say, as a service animal for them. And I'm working with Candy on something. Toffee immediately comes over and shows Candy, this is what he means. And I've never worked with Toffee in that way, but she already knows it. It's just amazing. You know, I always say Bosch is the second most intelligent dog I've ever seen or worked with out of 10, 12,000 dogs. Toffee's number one. So the number one and number two scary smart dogs that I've ever seen. And actually, that was how Toffee was described to me, is she's scary smart. And these are people who have Malinois, German Shepherds, etc., for many, many, many years, thousands of them. So, and they were right. She is scary smart. So the survival aspects, the abilities, both mental and physical, of that dog, having a role that blends and that each is comfortable with and the others accept. One dog that wants to dominate and take over, and the others say, no, you're not, we don't trust you or follow you to be in that position. We disagree with that. That dog doesn't need to have that role. And you need to understand those personalities, the ones that try to force their, just like humans, the ones that force their dominance aren't worthy of following. They have to force it. So those are not the ones that other dogs will follow. Think about that and how you behave with your dogs. You become understandable, trustworthy, then you can be followed. You first, not the dogs. Okay. The experience, both relatable, useful, and helpful. That equals trust. And that's where dogs, their role in the pack should be trustworthy as well. They have to prove that trustworthy. So how do dogs see each other, dogs within the pack? They should be working together, not in direct competition. I say direct competition because direct competition is opposed to each other. Competition for something is a learning experience, is much like you would do in a sport or take a martial art or do anything in competition with somebody else. You're actually pro-social. You're both learning to become better at what you are and what that aspect is. So, but direct competition is opposition. You do not want opposition in that pack. And when you see it, you need to quell it instantly. Boom. Okay. And that doesn't mean separate the dogs. It means, hey, stop. I'm stepping in. Once they stop, okay, now you can go back to whatever you were doing as long as it's not opposing each other. Okay. When people separate dogs, you're saying don't trust each other because I don't trust you either. And that's really what's happening is the human doesn't trust themselves to understand or capabilities of handling it. So they just separate the dogs. So they're saying, I don't trust myself, don't trust each other too. So working together, not in direct competition. I'm not talking about play. I'm not talking about healthy competition. Roles and of play, human awareness and influence during potential and actual conflict. That's what I just talked about. So I'm looking at my little outline to make sure that I cover what I want to cover. So how do dogs see each other? Composure, comfort with each other. Some are natural at doing that. You need to study those dogs. Those should be your science. That should be what you study, is those dogs that have comfort with each other and create composure within the entire pack, because they're the ones that have the knowledge, guys. And then agreement with each other, okay? So we've kind of talked about the selection of dogs for your pack, the types of dogs. Breeds have different characteristics. Depends on what you do, where you live, the amount of space that you have. You could have a 2-room apartment 80 stories up in midtown Manhattan, and you have to have a dog that can handle nothing but concrete, chaos, noise, and going up and down with other dogs and people in an elevator. That's a careful selection. Otherwise, you've got really bad situations. Or you can have 1,000 acres out there with a border collie, taking care of sheep, or an LGD taking care of cattle or whatever else. So be careful what you select. Just because it's a fad or it's cute, or you get a general temperament recommendation off of Facebook, look at the brain of the dog, see what it really is before you select anything at all. Because you're looking at temperament, the behaviors of the dog that's going to give you, and then you provide training and guidance for it. And really, what's your ultimate goal? That's the question. What is your goal? So you're the one creating the pack, because dogs don't select their own in our environments other than feral dogs. I hope so. I'm gonna call it right there. That's it's different than I talked about last time a bit, but we kind of followed the same thing. And I hope that came across well for you guys. And this one got recorded, so it's what people will see from now on. So anything else, guys? Yeah, and
Question, can a pack be created in a daycare setting?
yes, absolutely, 100%. It's an instant pack. Whoever you bring in, that's why the human has to understand all of these aspects to help influence the outcome of that pack. If you try to control it, that's when conflict happens, because you are opposed to many dogs. Okay. When I brought a dog in to my house, when I had, 8 of my own dogs or 10 or 12 or whatever else, and I brought a dog in for rehabilitation, I knew it was going to be a long-term case because, it may last months. Usually they did because they were extremely severe case dogs, either terrified, truly feral, terrified dogs, wild animals essentially, or they were, I'm going to kill your dogs, or I'm going to kill you. And so they'd come in and instantly I treated them as an equal member to my pack, treated them with the same intent, thought, etc., which changes the whole dynamic of how that dog sees the universe. Plus, it can't fight 20 other dogs. So it has to kind of acquiesce and wait a couple of days and see how things go. And then they recognize how well things are going and that they're not attacked. So all of those behaviors are instantly influenced by your intent of you're part of the pack, and you do the same thing in a daycare or whatever else. You can create a base group of dogs too that are well behaved and they help you influence the other dogs if you're aware of those things. Matter of fact, years ago we did let's see, myself, Todd McVicker, Jason Vasconi, Krista Meyer. We did a lecture, a 1 day long lecture down in Houston that a number of guys from BARC, which is the Houston Animal Control, came to the lecture. And afterwards, they came up to me and asked about creating, because I had talked about some aspects of using older dogs, especially ones that didn't get adopted. They don't get, everybody wants a puppy. To create a calm, composed pack to influence those other dogs in those situations. So they talked to me about it, and they were doing changes in their facility, building a new facility. So I worked with them on creating a kind of a permanent shelter pack to influence other dogs that they could get out in the dog yards, and those older dogs could influence these others. So the dynamic of that unit then influenced all these other dogs to become better, to act better within that shelter environment and get adopted out. So they became kind of the shelter's assistants, if you will. And it worked very well. I don't know if they're still doing that or not. I haven't had contact with Houston in years, probably 10 years. So, okay. So, good question. I hope I answered it.
That was it.
Okay. All right, guys. Well, thank you very much for sticking it out, and glad to see everybody. And again, this will be recorded, so it should be up tomorrow sometime, I guess, or available tomorrow. So for those who weren't here or on last time, was anybody here this time that was on last time too? I don't think so. I didn't recognize anyone. Oh, Sharon, were you on?
Yes.
Okay. So how close was I in theme and all the other things this time versus last time?
This time I found it much easier to follow you. Last time you went into different areas, went off on a couple of tangents, and this time it was much clearer.
Up to the moon last time, I'd had enough. So, yeah, but yeah, they started kind of coming up against one emotion over that. So I just said, okay. All right. All right, guys. Well, thank you. I appreciate you. And we'll see you next month, hopefully.
Thanks, Nelson.
Thank you.
Thank
This
you.
was awesome. Thank you.
Adios.
Thank you.
Auf Wiedersehen.
2
Thank you.
p.m. next time.
I will switch back and forth like I used to. We'll set some times and I'll publish those. Okay.
That will be great. Thank you.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you.
Adios.
Bye.